By now, you certainly understand that regular physical activity is essential for weight management. We took a brief look at the basics of health-related fitness. Today, we are going to look at what type, how much, how often, and what intensity. In particular, we are going to use the FIT principle to create a program for the health-related components of physical fitness and identify concepts to strengthen individual commitment to physical activity. First, we are going to address FIT to help you put together an exercise prescription. F-I-T-T stands for, the F stands for frequency, or the number of days per week that you participate in physical activity. I stands for intensity, or how hard you exercise. T stands for time, or how long your exercise session lasts. And the second T stands for what type of exercise. When you put this all together, you will have a plan of action to implement or increase your exercise program. We will begin by applying FIT to cardiorespiratory endurance. As you learned in your reading, VO2 max is the best indicator of exercise intensity for cardiorespiratory fitness. However, it is impractical for everyday use. We are going to review several ways to measure exercise intensity that correlates to VO2 max. Before we begin, take a minute to find either your carotid or radial pulse. You can find your carotid pulse by sliding your two peace fingers behind your ear and draw them down and slightly forward to just beneath your jawbone to your neck. For your radial pulse, again, use your two peace fingers and begin at the base of your thumb with your palm facing up. Slide your fingers just to the inside of your wrist. Press gently to find your pulse. We are going to take your resting pulse for a full minute, so find your pulse at either location and get ready. I will time a full minute while you count your heartbeats. Begin counting at 1 when I say go. 3, 2, 1, go. Stop. Record your resting heart rate. Now that you know your resting pulse, you can calculate your heart rate reserve. Before we begin, print the heart rate reserve worksheet from D2L. Heart rate reserve is somewhat more accurate than just using your maximal heart rate because it takes into account your resting heart rate. An individual who has a more fit cardiorespiratory system will for the most part have a lower resting heart rate. You may want to retake your resting heart rate because the best time to take your resting pulse is when you are completely relaxed, sitting still for at least 20 minutes, and you will want to make sure that you have not consumed caffeine or any other stimulant prior to taking your heart rate. You should measure this at least 2 different times and then average them. As you increase your cardiorespiratory fitness level, your resting heart rate should decrease over time. Let's calculate your heart rate reserve. First, you will need to estimate your maximal heart rate, which is the fastest rate at which your heart will beat in 1 minute. Please note This is definitely not where you want to be exercising. Let's calculate heart rate reserve for an individual who is 22 with a resting heart rate of 68. First, multiply your age by 0.7. So 22 multiplied by 0.7 equals 15.4. Now subtract 15.4 from 208. In our example, this individual's maximal heart rate is 193 beats per minute. Next, we will estimate your heart rate reserve. Subtract your resting heart rate from your maximal heart rate. In our example, we will subtract 68 from 193. The result is your heart rate reserve, or 125 for our example. Now let's figure out the range for your heart rate reserve. Your threshold of training, or minimum heart rate for achieving health benefits, is 40% of heart rate reserve. To calculate your threshold heart rate, multiply your heart rate reserve by 0.40 and then add your resting heart rate. In our example, we will multiply 125 times 0.40. Then add in the resting heart rate of 68. This gives us 118 beats per minute. And finally, we will figure out the upper limit. The upper limit of your target zone is 85% of your heart rate reserve. To calculate your upper limit heart rate, multiply your heart rate reserve by 0.85 and then add your resting heart rate. So, in our example, we will multiply 125 times 0.85, which equals 106. Then add 68, which equals 174 beats per minute. In order to achieve the best results for improving your health-related cardiorespiratory fitness, you should work between the threshold and upper limits of heart rate reserve. This is your target heart rate zone. For best results, begin lower in the target zone and gradually increase your exercise intensity. While exercising, it is easier to time your heart rate for 15 seconds rather than for a full 60 seconds. Divide your threshold and upper limit heart rate reserve by 4 to calculate the 15-second beats per minute value. If you wanted to stay in your moderate intensity zone, you would need to calculate a moderate upper limit by multiplying your heart rate reserve by 0.59 for 59%. We already estimated our maximal heart rate by using the more accurate method of multiplying your age by 0.7 and then subtracting that value from 208. You can also use the simple method of subtracting your age from 220. With maximal heart rate, you would determine your target heart rate zone by simply multiplying maximal heart rate by 0.55 to determine your threshold and by 0.90 to determine your upper limit. For weight management, you will want to stay somewhere around 55% to 69% of maximal heart rate. Borg's rating of perceived exertion is another method of determining intensity. Here, the individual will identify their exercise intensity based on how hard they think they are working. Showing here is the original scale, where an individual would want to be working between 12 and 16 for health-related cardiorespiratory endurance, and between 12 and 13 for weight management. The revised scale ranges from 0 to 10 and is suggested that individuals are more likely to be able to accurately estimate a value on a scale of 0 to 10. I like using this Borg scale, whichever version, especially when working with sedentary individuals who are out of shape. The talk test is the easiest but least scientific method of measuring cardiorespiratory exercise intensity. While exercising, if you can carry on an intense conversation or recite poetry, then your intensity is too easy. And if you are gasping for breath to talk, you are working too hard and need to slow down. If you are able to talk in complete sentences, then you are working at moderate intensity. This table identifies each method of estimating cardiorespiratory intensity. Remember, for weight management, you will want to exercise at moderate intensity. Here is your exercise prescription for cardiorespiratory endurance for health-related fitness. The American College of Sports Medicine recommends 3 to 5 days per week of moderate to vigorous rhythmic continuous activity at 40 to 59% of heart rate reserved to be performed for 20 to 60 minutes at a time, depending on level of intensity. For weight management, it is recommended that individuals aim for 5 to 7 days of moderate intensity activity for at least 60 minutes each time. Ultimately, we should be getting at least 150 minutes per week for moderate intensity and 75 minutes for vigorous intensity. For health-related fitness, you can reduce your time when exercising at vigorous intensity. Remember, for weight management, you will increase your frequency and time to accumulate between 225 and 420 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. Applying the FIT principle to muscular strength and muscular endurance is a bit different. First, we need to talk about repetition maximum, which is the maximum amount of resistance that can be moved a specified number of times. 1 rep max is the maximum amount of weight that can be lifted one time. 5 rep max is the maximum weight that can be lifted 5 times. Repetitions are the number of times an exercise is performed during one set. In muscular strength and endurance, we adjust sets and repetitions to apply the FIT principle and to progress. Frequency is 2 to 3 days per week of exercises that train all major muscle groups using enough repetitions and sufficient resistance to improve muscular strength and endurance. Intensity is determined using greater than 55% of your 1 rep max for muscular strength and less than 50% of your 1 rep max for muscular endurance. To increase muscular strength, you need higher intensity and fewer repetitions and sets. Again, use a resistance of more than 55% of your 1 rep max, performing 2 to 4 sets with 8 to 12 repetitions per set. For muscular endurance, use less than 50% of your 1 rep max, performing 1 to 2 sets of 15 to 25 repetitions. Resting between exercises can reduce fatigue and help with performance and safety. In addition, you will need a day of rest to give your muscles the opportunity to repair and build. And last but not least, we will apply the FIT principle to flexibility. Use static stretching that slowly and gradually lengthens a muscle or group of muscles. Train a minimum 3 to 7 days. However, daily training produces the best results. Perform and hold the static stretch for 15 to 30 seconds at the point of tension or mild discomfort, but not pain. And here is what it looks like all together. Getting and staying committed to exercise can be a challenge. What if you've been inactive for a while? In the initial conditioning stage, you begin at levels lower than those recommended for you. Then gradually increase frequency, intensity, or time to progress. It is always a good idea to complete the PAR-Q questionnaire for those who are just beginning to exercise. The Physical Activity Readiness Questionnaire is a standard questionnaire that you should complete before you begin an exercise program. You can find a PDF of the questionnaire on D2L, as well as a link to complete the questionnaire online. Completing a contract with yourself will help you to commit to exercise. You can find the contract in D2L. Make sure that you engage your social network for support. Evaluate your inner circle for support and have somebody sign off on your contract. Let them know your goals and how they can be of assistance. You can also enlist others through social media. Next time, we will look at developing your program and progressing.